A major contradiction now at the heart of this war. Did the United States of America know about the strike on the Iran South Pars gas field or not? Because while President Donald Trump has publicly claimed that Israel acted alone, out of anger, multiple reports now suggest that the strike was in fact coordinated and cleared at the highest levels. This is a question that goes to the heart of the credibility. Because South Pars is not just Iran's asset. It is a shared gas field with Qatar, a key American ally, and that strike has now triggered retaliation, putting the entire Gulf on edge. So the big question is, if Washington knew, why deny it? And if Washington did not know, then who is really in control? Let's break down the contradiction. On one side, President Trump says the United States had no knowledge of the attack and that Israel acted independently. On the other, reports suggest that the strike was actually greenlit after coordination between PM Benjamin Netanyahu and White House, aimed at deterring Iran from disrupting oil flows through the Strait of Hormuz. There are also details of urgent back-channel calls between US officials and Qatar after the strike, with Doha seeking clarity on whether Washington was aware. This is not a minor gap. This is a direct conflict between public position and reported action. Listen in to US Secretary of War Pete Hegseth.
Yesterday at Dover Air Force Base, President Trump, the chairman, and I stood in solemn silence as heroes came home. Flag-draped caskets, we honored them. We grieved with their families, and we listened. What I heard through tears, through hugs, through strength, and through unbreakable resolve was the same from family after family. They said, finish this. Honor their sacrifice. Do not waver. Do not stop until the job is done. My response, along with that of the president, was simple. Of course, we will finish this. We will honor their sacrifice. Their sacrifice only steals our commitment.
Now understand what was struck. South Pars is the largest natural gas field in the world, jointly shared by Iran and Qatar. Any attack here is not contained to one country. It automatically risks dragging in a key US ally, and that is exactly what followed. Iran retaliated by targeting LNG infrastructure in Qatar, including Ras Laffan, escalating the conflict beyond Iran and Israel into broader Gulf. President Trump has maintained that the United States knew nothing about the strike and that Israel acted out of anger. He has also issued a strong warning to Iran, saying that any further attack on Qatar's energy infrastructure would invite massive retaliation from Washington. But that raises even a bigger question. If the US had no role, why issue the warning? And if it did have a role, why deny it? The consequences of that one strike are already visible. Iran has expanded its retaliation beyond direct targets and issued warnings across the Gulf. Energy infrastructure is now under threat across multiple countries. The battlefield has widened and the risks have multiplied. And in midst of all this, Iran's fiercest retaliation yet, US claimed that it is yet to launch the largest strike package on Tehran.
Our objectives, given directly from our America First president, remain exactly what they were on day one. These are not the media's objectives, not Iran's objectives, not new objectives, our objectives. Unchanged, on target, and on plan. Destroy missiles, launchers, and Iran's defense industrial base so they cannot rebuild. Destroy their navy, and Iran never gets a nuclear weapon. Our objectives from day one. That is overwhelming force applied with precision. And again, today will be the largest strike package yet, just like yesterday was. As I've said from day one, our capabilities continue to build, Iran's continue to degrade. We're hunting and striking death and destruction from above.
So here are the big questions. Did the United States silently approve the South Pars strike? Why does President Trump's version contradicts emerging reports? Has Israel dragged the US into a deeper conflict? And can Washington still rein in Israel's military decisions? And finally, is the region now on the brink of a wider war? On this issue, I'm joined by Ambassador Veena Sikri, Professor Swaran Singh, and Lieutenant General Shaukin Chauhan. Let me straight away go to General Chauhan. Sir, my question is very simple. Is America following the red lines of Israel, or are these red lines their red lines?
Good evening, Karthik. That's a very difficult question. because the idea that America and the American president has said that he did not know about this is either because it is politically, it will affect him politically, or it is going to affect his closest allies in the Gulf, Qatar, Saudi Arabia. Oil fields are on fire. Oil fields are on fire create huge mayhem in the entire West Asia. And to say that we knew nothing while strike on Iran's South Pass gas oil complex uh, is amazing. But the multiple reports, Reuters, Israeli officials suggest quite the opposite, as you said, that the US had prior knowledge, or at least had tacit approval, and that coordination was at the highest level, though not a direct. So this is classic plausible deniability. I think Washington is trying to avoid a direct escalation with Iran. That's a very important thing. It's trying to reassure Gulf allies. It's trying to also benefit from Israeli pressure on Iran. So these are the issues that probably America has in mind right now. Avoid direct confrontation on the oil infrastructure because it knows how sensitive the Gulf allies are on their oil. Because it also knows that if the Iranian oil fields were set on fire, Iran would do the same to the West Asian allies, and that's exactly what they've done. So herein lies the complexity of this particular war. Now, will this war widen? I have no doubt that it will widen. Will it include the superpowers? I doubt very much that China and Russia will come into this war. But definitely at a regional level. Qatar, Saudi Arabia, uh, Abu Dhabi, and all the other smaller West Asian countries are already in this.
Ambassador Sikri, first, Americans wanted to dismantle the regime. The words like Mo Dolan were used. Then they wanted to take out the nuclear bomb. Then they wanted to take down the missiles. Tulsi Gabbard says that they had no idea, and the previous operation had taken down the nuclear infrastructure. But Iran has some missiles which can reach the coast of the United States of America, which I would assume is an ICBM. But Iran does not have a proper ICBM; they have IRBMs. So has the objective of the war become very, very fuzzy?
You know, the objectives of the war were never clear to start with. We all know that America was forced into this war under pressure from Israel. And because President Trump's own key advisors, General Kane and his other key military advisors, were strongly recommending against American involvement in the war for a series, for a number of reasons, including the fact that they are themselves running low on missiles and other weaponry because of what they have been giving to Israel and Ukraine over the last 3 years. So I think the getting into the war seems to have been under direct pressure from Israel. There is little doubt about that. Now, as we can see, the sudden step to step up to widen the rampage of the war, to extend the war now to direct attacks on oil facilities, is also under Israeli pressure. And I think that it is clear that while the Americans are claiming that they did not know, there is no plausible deniability because CENTCOM and the Israel Air Force are supposed to be operating in tandem, and they could not have launched this one strike, and you cannot say that for one particular strike that in tandem operation has been suspended or something like that. That's completely implausible. So obviously there's some very much knowledge of the Americans, but they want now to deny because of the world's response and Iran's own response. They have not only said they will launch attacks on oil facilities in the Gulf, but they've actually done it. They've carried it out with Qatar, and there's a huge reaction to that. I think that one has to really talk about this whole plausibility of whether America is able to rein in Israel. The public opinion in America is rapidly increasingly turning against US involvement in this war, and it is combined with increasing animosity towards Israel. And I think that President Trump is now more actively seeking an off-ramp, as they call it, seeking some kind of an exit. And I think this is what we have to focus on now. I think here there are two key aspects that we look at. The Gulf countries, obviously they're in close touch with the president of the US. What is their advice? Are they going along with America's objectives to finish off Iran's nuclear facility, missile facility, defense objectives, and even, of course, on Karg Island, as we know that America has destroyed all
Correct.
the non-oil facilities. I think that is that what the Gulf leaders are advising President Trump, or are they putting pressure on President Trump to bring an end to this war and to really call it off? I think the closure of the Straits of Hormuz is another very important step that Iran has taken and has increased the pressure on President Trump to find a solution. In fact, Foreign Minister Araghchi of Iran has offered that we should look for a long-term solution to keep the Strait of Hormuz open under all circumstances. He's offering a peaceful way out of this conflict. So I think that we have to focus on this off-ramp. And I think here India's role is very important, because a lot of the world leaders, even within America, public opinion and other, they're talking about India. The latest is the spokesperson of the Russian Foreign Ministry has again said that India must take a lead in this. India, as you know, we have the presidency of BRICS this year. And in any case, as the chairperson of BRICS, we are finding a way out, a statement that will be acceptable to all the members. I think this is the time now, and we cannot wait anymore to find an off-ramp for this terrible conflict, which is going to have catastrophic consequences, including the beginning of World War III, if we are not already there.
Okay, Professor Sorensen, a lot of people would like to know, Americans and Israelis have close relationship, but what is the disproportionate influence which Benjamin Netanyahu enjoys on Donald Trump? I mean, so this is a disproportionate influence he has on White House.
That's true. There could be multiple ways of explaining that rather close proximity that became a public spectacle almost from the first term of President Trump, continued even during President Joe Biden, and now again out in open. But I think it's primarily because the threats from Iran are seen very differently from Tel Aviv and from Washington, D.C. And it's a clear understanding that Netanyahu was willing to go on striking Iran, even if United States was not going to join it. And history shows that one after another, there are examples when Israel has unilaterally hit neighbors. You would remember Osirak being hit in 1981, 2007, Syria, Lebanon again and again, now again, for example. So, Trump had a clear understanding, and they have said it publicly, that if they were not joining Netanyahu's strikes of Iran, Netanyahu would have gone on his own in that sense. But fundamentally, the difficulty now is, as Ambassador just now said, Ambassador Sikri is saying there is no exit strategy. The new supreme leader, Mojtaba, has clearly has said that they will end the war on their own terms. And because there is not any clear strategy, Trump has compulsion to continue even escalating, but he's also coming under pressure. For example, the recent resignation that we saw of Joe Kent, director of National Counterterrorism Center, openly criticizing Trump's strategy and getting into this war. And that sentiment is writ large across United States power elite, among his countries in Middle East, in Europe, and so on. And therefore, I think this intentional ambiguity of distancing, from the strikes by Israel in that sense, could be to, say that, he is not pushing ahead for escalation, and that would assuage some sentiments in the region of Middle East region of his Arab allies in that sense. But at the same time, it is not expected that, United States did not know of it. So therefore, there are structural factors that are putting constraints on him. There are domestic kind of discontent which is becoming visible. And of course, in the name of ensuring stability at the global energy market, I think he's also primarily looking at not destroying regions' resources, because ultimately he's assuming that one day he's going to send American companies to go and capture these resources, and the more they are destroyed, the more difficult it will be to really put them back on rails and start using those resources. So yes, at operational level, at the policy level, there is no doubt United States has enormous leverages in determining how Israel operates. But when it comes to, push comes to shove and Israel decides that it is going to strike, then I think the compulsions become, in reverse in that sense. So Israel also
Okay.
shows having some leverages.
Okay.
But between the two, it is the United States that decides.
General John, is it also because of the fact that, the way Israel behaved before Hamas attacked them and the way Israel behaved post Hamas attack, it has made every military action as a war of existence, like an existential crisis. If they don't do it, they will not survive the next day.
You're absolutely right. It's like a Dr. Jekyll and Hyde story. But there is another backstory to this. See the Hamas crisis, the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu was facing impeachment. So whether this was a crisis that escalated because he pushed it to that, whether whether it was a self-created problem, it was a problem that he controlled and didn't control, whatever be the problem. The main thing is that post the Hamas situation, the hit by him, by Hamas, everything now Israel is looking at is the destruction, absolute destruction of all opposing regimes as far as Israel is concerned. And to finally go after the mother lode, that is Iran, who was supporting the Hezbollah, was supporting all the other groups opposed to Israel in West Asia. It's a major issue because where do you stop? Iran will not stop. Iran can continue this, they can continue getting hit and continue hitting backwards. Somebody has to find an off-ramp, as the ambassador said. There has to be an off-ramp. There has to be a controlling, a railing in of Israel if we are to stop this. And more importantly, the responsible countries have to reach out to each other to stop this war before it becomes, as the ambassador said, World War III.
Okay, let me take a, so I've really run short of time. Let me take a closing comment from Ambassador Sikri because she used the word off-ramp. And Madam, people say that, Israelis got leverage in context of wherever they are. They have leverage on India, they have leverage on America. There has to be someone having a leverage on these Israelis. Is there a leverage there?
Yes, there are definite leverages there because the lack of support, even from America's traditional allies. President Trump asked all his allies, Japan, Australia, and NATO allies, to come and send their navies to the Straits of Hormuz. They've all said no. Now, this is a big blow to American prestige worldwide. And this will go as to exert that pressure on Israel because it is America who has given in to pressure from Israel.
Okay.
So I think that Russia, for example, does have a special linkage with the Israeli leadership because of the significant percentage of Russian origin Jews living in Israel and also their linkages back with their homes in Russia. So the Russian state is putting pressure. The allies who said no to participating in the Straits of Hormuz, keeping it open, they are the ones exerting pressure. Tulsi Gabbard gave a statement to Congress. That is exerting pressure from within on President Trump. And we also know that there was an attack on the Bushehr nuclear facility in Iran. The missile fell 350 meters away and exploded and destroyed a building, but the nuclear facility is safe. So the possibilities of increasing the intensity of the war is very much there. And to prevent this from happening, I think everybody has to get together. What Prime Minister Carney of Canada described as the middle powers, India, Canada, Japan, Australia, South Korea, all these groups have to get together. Even UK, who is a traditional ally called the poodle of USA, even they have broken away. So I think this global pressure has to come together. It's being exercised individually. It should come together to seek a solution and an off-ramp for this terrible war that is there.
Thank you.